and welcome to Martech Advisor's Executive Interview Series. I'm Ginger Conlon, a contributing editor to Martech Advisor, and joining us today is Marc Parrish, who is CMO of Action IQ. Welcome, Marc.
Thanks, Ginger. I appreciate being here.
We are going to talk about trends and opportunities with customer data platforms. But before we get into the topic, let's talk about Action IQ. Briefly, what is Action IQ and what makes it unique?
So ActionIQ is a customer data platform that fills the donut hole that was left by the marketing clouds. So what happened with Adobe and Oracle and Salesforce is when they purchased these disparate marketing applications, let's say for email service provider, or a website analytics tool, or let's say social or mobile, those applications actually don't talk to each other very well at the fine-grained data level. So you're not able to get a complete customer journey without getting all of the data in one place activated for marketing. And as Peter Norvig of Google says, it's not that we have better algorithms, we have better data. So a lot of Google's algorithms actually are public, and once you apply those beautiful algorithms, which people help them make better, to an incredible data set, you get something very unique. So all of the people that we help, all of the very big brands that we help, are people that want to do that. They want to activate all of their customer data in a very accelerated way without putting too much of a burden on their organization. So Action IQ does that. We fill this data donut hole that the marketing clouds lack.
In describing the company, you've really kind of given a great perspective of what customer data platforms are, but could you just kind of sum it up in a definition for those who might not be as familiar?
Well, the customer data platform vertical, I would say, has a couple of points. One is that the marketers manage the system, that they employ this sort of unified view of all of your data, but also it's very persistent single database for all the customer behavioral and profile data. So you're able to take internal sources and external sources, and the way that we talk about it is it's sort of pop the trunk or roll up the warehouse door, and we'll take everything in whatever state that it's in. So you can also say that we use systems which are completely accessible for both external and internal systems, so it's fully integrated into the marketer's need for that data management. Well, a common conception is that data lakes or data warehouses are already meeting this need. And what many of the data lakes and data warehouses are Hadoop. And, as I say of Hadoop, is that the only people that get things out of Hadoop are the people that put it in. The marketers can't really do that without a layer of, or a buffer, let's say, of data scientists around them who can help them make sense of all this data. So data management platforms, DMPs, as they say, they deal with non-PII data. They're perfectly purpose-built for real-time bidding and advertising. Data warehouses are usually built for doing financial reporting, let's say, or operational things, and they have customer data in them, but only so the customer data platforms actually differ dramatically in that they do this only for marketing. And marketing has a problem in general, at least all the time that I've been in marketing, that in terms of you are very dependent upon IT, of your CTO, your CIO, in order to facilitate things that you need for activation. Now, the amount of marketing data is accelerating much faster than the operational data, let's say. So if you would take an example, even a data warehouse that may have huge catalogs in it, like a couple of million SKUs, right? Even Amazon has 30 million SKUs, of which about 15 million, let's say, are active at any time, and about 10 million of which they keep in their own warehouses, right? But even that complexity of data, it pales in comparison to the amount of customer interaction data that they have, not only from the website, but you think about all of the things within Prime that they now include, like video streaming and cloud storage, music. These are all things that they didn't have before, and they're adding further data points of customer interactions that are dwarfing the amount of operational data that you have. So the marketer and the marketing data becomes much more important to the organization than any other data aggregation, let's say, or amalgam of data. So the marketer becomes much more important, and yet the CTO almost never reports into marketing. What they do is report into CFO or CEO. And that gives you a disconnect, actually, between those people that actually want data and want it to be accelerated and the person reporting into the financial or the executive class of the company. You're, as a marketer, as a CMO, you're probably fourth or fifth on the pecking order, let's say, for data projects being done.
Right. So how can these customer data platforms and this newfound kind of, power and freedom help marketers, improve certain processes? And what would that be? What are some examples?
Well, I would say if you look at the way that most marketers interact within the organization, some are marketers with all the ideas. Then you have marketing operations, and you go to them and say, "This is my idea. How do I execute on it?" Those people say, "Oh, I can translate that for my data scientists who may sit in the organization, may sit someplace else." So you get really many people touching from the idea to the data, and those layers are very inefficient. So when the marketer himself can say, "Hey, you know something? I'm thinking about incorporating a new data set. I'm thinking about building new segments based upon different attributes that I didn't even think of before, like not active in 7 days, but the person that actually was active in certain categories within certain demographics and certain geos and things like that. You get to target much better. So you can imagine an organization that would have, let's say, 35 million customer records, or even 100 million customer records, and then say you can take that down to segments of 10 and provide meaningful content to these people much more quickly, like within minutes rather than within days. Right. That's very powerful to the organization in general, that not only do they wrangle the data well, but then they're able to take that and put that back into the marketing apps that they spend so much money on.
That's awesome. So thinking about how marketers are currently using data, customer data platforms, and maybe an example from one of your customers, what's an opportunity that they can use, that maybe they're doing some great work, but maybe they're overlooking an opportunity, like working better with another department or better personalization, and taking that opportunity would really make a significant positive impact.
Right. So let's take an example. Are you a Spotify user, or Hulu, or Netflix, let's say?
Yeah.
Yeah, all three, right? Those companies do a great job at recommendations to you, right? Mm-hmm. So you saw something and these were done with traditional algorithms called market basket analysis, where you were able to see what people had done before and then make recommendations for the future. Everybody has gotten pretty good at that, although 10 years ago they probably weren't. And there are companies which have grown up around those specifically. When you look at the next layer without, like, let's say Spotify, I'm just going to take one example. They're not only able to put people who've listened to a lot of Rolling Stones into a basket that maybe they thought were close together, like Fleetwood Mac, right? Those are very well established. But how do you take a new artist and put that into the mix? I get a lot of recommendations from Spotify, which are based upon very little data, very little data. And those signals, actually, once you get down into there, can actually make a big impact. I would say I listen to a lot of Latin rock music, and I get new artists in there that I had never heard of, who may have a following of, let's say, 10,000 people, and they're very good because they know the genre, they know I'm not sure if they do this thing where they analyze the actual music that you're listening to. But those things wouldn't be, if you are into Swedish rock that's sung in Swedish, you don't have many data points around that. And those things can be transformative in the way that you actually address a customer set that says, he's speaking only to me.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. What do you find as a common challenge, and what's some advice to get around that challenge or overcome it?
Yeah, I would say that, customer data platforms are very new, but data warehouses are very, established, or CRM systems. They're very established. And when most people think, hey, how am I going to execute on this? They say, I'm going to go do it internally. I'm going to go build this. And the build versus buy, really, that, those days of analyzing these things for large data systems are probably past. It's a little bit like I say, it's like trying to build a Ferrari. And that's the way I refer to, Action IQ is we are the Ferrari engine for data, for marketing data. If you want to go out and build a Ferrari from a kit, you're not going to get the best Ferrari. It's got to be made in the factory, bespoke by experts. You don't go and say, here are a bunch of blueprints. I'm going to go order an engine from here and a tire from here and the drivetrain from a different thing, then hire a bunch of engineers who are going to flip the plans over and try to make sense of them. I've never seen that work, actually. So what happens usually is, large companies who are very sophisticated say, let's get the project done. It takes a year and a half. They fail. They try again. Maybe they restart it. They fire people. They bring more people in. And it's never quite right. It's a little bit like building the Ferrari from a kit car and then taking on the road and going, this is a little clunky. You can start up a company literally overnight in your living room and get a data center and lots of servers, right? It's the same with just about everything, that we don't make sewing machines at home anymore. We don't, do many things within technology. When I first started out, we actually built our own email delivery system because ESPs didn't exist. Nobody's doing that today. So as you start becoming more and more sophisticated as both as a marketer, a CMO, a head of CRM, and as a CTO on that side, you've got to make this decision that some people are doing this so well. They're building these Ferraris so well that, I should get something off the shelf and let the experts, help me with that. And I'll go do the things which are really important for my own customization of a business. We don't build accounting systems from scratch anymore. So we've sort of reached that edge of the event horizon, let's say, of trying to wrangle data.
That's a great analogy. So, I feel like this is a little bit of an obvious question, right? Because these are customer data platforms, so it's all about the customer. Customer experience is such a hot topic. Is there something that marketers should be thinking about to really get the best use out of these platforms to not just help themselves and their results, but deliver a better customer experience as well, even if that's to prospects?
Yeah, well, I would ask a question that's a little bit rhetorical, but I'm interested in your answer. Are you a Prime member?
Yes.
Yes. You know how many people are Prime members now? Like 50 million.
Wow.
And what happened a couple of years ago? They increased the price from $79 to $99. That's a lot of money, right? For people to shell out for, right? And then you increase it by 25%. That's a big hike. You know how many people they lost? Almost none. I mean, it was in like the single digits. And so when you take a look, that propped them up quite a bit in terms of, and what was the reason that people, because it was so amazing, the experience that you get with getting it. And remember that 80% of the boxes that were going out of Amazon before Prime were free because they were above $25, right? Remember those days. We still lock into it. So 80% of the people didn't need it, but they kept on it because they said, something, I know the experience, they're constantly, they put Prime on all the tape that came with all my boxes, and the boxes came on time, and I'm locked into this. Then when they started adding more and more services to it, let's say first they were competing with Walmart just with free shipping, and then they started going after music, books, video, right? All the way through. That became something that was an easy lock-in. But now you have to keep fulfilling that customer experience over years, right? So that people don't even think about getting out of it and wondering whether it's value for money. That I would say that analogy, you could take to almost any business, especially any of the businesses which are having a difficult time with with omni-channel, right? Where they're trying to compete with their floor space versus mobile experience versus e-commerce, which are all different. I just had a experience where I was going out to Newark Airport from Manhattan. And New Jersey Transit, I don't know if you remember the lines when you go to Penn Station or anything, trying to go through a line, and when your train is there and they only have so much throughput for the tickets, they have an app now where you can just buy it. Just buy the ticket. I got hooked on that app. And then it was not working the other day, and I had to go to a machine. That is an opportunity for New Jersey Transit to go, hey, you went back to the other thing because I recognized your credit card going into the machine, and I know you usually use the app, and I want to give you a user experience that acknowledge that user experience that you had on both sides, and say, hey, I'm sorry for making you go back, or sorry the app wasn't working, or something like that. I would say any business that you have, which is sort of a retail business like that, has 10,000 opportunities just like that. And so the more that a marketer gets in and says, I thought about that, but I didn't really have the data as to, he used it on mobile, then he was usually using it in the machine, and now he went back to the machine, but I had an outage, during that time. That would be something that everybody could get behind in terms of user experience. If you don't have the data and you don't have that data accelerated, you're not doing that. Usually most things in data have a water analogy associated with it. But silos, I could call them a water tower as well. But they're caught in these jugs, right, around, and you can't just put all the water in one swimming pool, because there are disparate owners of these silos, or there are permission rights and security rights. I read a thing, actually, I think it was in the Harvard Business Review, where there are two strategies of data: defensive and offensive, right? Defensive is, I got to keep it secure. I've got to make sure that, we don't lose it all over the place, or we don't destroy it, or, that's defensive. Playing offense is, you want to do, and that's what, I usually do, is you want to make it go faster, make it sure that there's, customer interactions in there which are meaningful, making sure that the right people are using. That's an offensive strategy. So I like that analogy, that either you're playing defense or offense on data. But most companies are playing defense, right? They're just trying to get it into the same place. That creates a siloed culture, which is almost impossible to have a winning strategy when you go to market.
Yeah. Well, so, such great insight on all this. So let's wrap up with a look forward. What is coming up that you're excited about in two areas? One is the market in general. Perhaps there's a new tool or trends that you're excited about. And then within Action IQ, anything, a new product, an upgrade, or something that we should know about?
Well, within the market in general, we've gone from very little awareness to a super amount of awareness within the last 12 months. Part of that has been, Gartner put their hype cycle in here. We're going up the hype cycle. But that's one thing, is that people are talking about it. I went to the Gartner conference in San Diego, and there must have been 100 mentions of CDPs. It's a very little understood category, quote unquote. And we don't count ourselves really as just this traditional CDP. The companies we get, associated with were marketing apps for the most part that tried to move into this area where we're the bespoke Ferrari that does this only. We're not creating data points. We're actually managing the data points. And then So, the recognition has been one thing that a lot of people are hearing about it. So, there's interest. That's good for both, I think, for marketers in general, and then for the company Action IQ in general. In specific. One of the things that I'm excited about actually for Action IQ though is that the large brands have really started to come to this point where they say, "Oh, yeah, I get it. I can't build this completely. I just can't do this all on my own and expect to, and be very competitive in, omni-channel in this hyper-competitive environment." So a lot of companies have ridden this wave over the course of time. Zuora, I would say, is one which does billing systems. And at the beginning, everybody was building their billing systems, right? All the people that did subscriptions built some way of recurring payments because their IT guys go, I can build that. Nobody builds it anymore. Everybody
Right.
buys Zuora or one of the competitors of Zuora. So, and I was part of that thing as well. I mean, we had subscriptions when I was with Palm, we had subscriptions, Jigsaw. I could just name every single position that I've had has some measure of subscription within it, and we built it. And when I was with Nook, we actually went out and bought. That was the first time that I'd seen somebody. Okay, now we're going to implement. So you think about just about every trend in the economy has been from razor blades to private jets. There's subscriptions and everything, and this I think is the way it's going to go with marketing data. Is that you've got people that just do it very well. Action IQ, and that's why I'm excited about this. In particular, is that we have the pedigree both on the venture side, the people that have backed us, to the executive team, to all the way down to the engineers. This is really the best crew available that came from the data side to do this in a way that, marketers will sit up and take notice. So a little bit of that is, selfish, I would say. But in general, I think this is going to make for a much more diverse, economy and marketing landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mark, thank you so much for all the great insight today. I know I learned a lot about customer data platforms, and I'm sure our audience did as well. So, thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you, Ginger. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, and I also want to tell everyone who's watching that Mark and I also talked about the skills that leaders need to succeed today. And be sure to check that out, and also visit Martech Advisor's YouTube channel to check out the other executive interviews. And thanks so much for joining us.